help them grow so they can hire more people. Now, here's Deborah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Taking Care of Business. This is a weekly talk show that I use to introduce local business people who talk about their companies, how they got started. We all know that the most important thing to improving our economy is to create jobs. And most of the jobs created in Western Mass are created by small entrepreneurial businesses. As a matter of fact, 87% of those. Many of you know that I started this radio show because my hope to be the next state senator for the 1st Hamden, Hampshire district depends on making sure that our communities are healthy. And what we decide to do in Boston, those decisions that are made that have impacts on businesses are those things that I want to pay attention to if elected, when elected in November. So I've changed it up a little bit today. We have an amazing guest with us today. We have Senator Don Humason. Don was sworn into office in November as the state senator. He is the senator serving as state minority whip in his first term in the state Senate. He's also been selected to serve on several key legislative committees such as Veterans and Federal Affairs, Public Health, Revenue, Children, Family, and Persons with Disabilities, and the Budget Writing Senate Ways and Means. Don is also the chair of the legislature's Aviation Caucus and is a member of several other caucuses. Prior to serving as state senator, Don was a member of the House of Representatives since 2002, representing his hometown of Westfield. Don, thank you so much for taking time to be with me this afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Deborah. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
It's great to have you here. I heard you've been a busy guy the last 3 days. You in Boston?
Yeah, I got back last night around 11 o'clock. I've been at the State House for the past 3 days. It's the end of our formal sessions, as you know, and so next week the legislature adjourns on midnight, July 31st, Thursday night. So we've got a lot to do between now and then, and it's interesting. The Senate's actually been meeting 2 days a week for a couple of weeks now in formal sessions. The House is only meeting 1 day a week, so it's kind of surprising that they're not in session more often to take care of all the bills that need to move back and forth.
Well, Don, I know that you know that generally speaking, I use this show to talk to local business people because I feel so strongly that when we look to our left and our right in our local communities and we see those businesses that started from the ground up, that, those folks who took their own money and used their own internal gumption to take the jump and the risk to start their own companies. They're employing people in our communities, our children, our friends, our family members. And we really, really need to pay attention to the fact that we have to take care of them. We have to support them locally. But on the state's level, on the legislator's side, we need to really pay attention to those decisions that are being made that have an impact on our small businesses. And I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation with you because you and I are of like minds. And you're doing the job that I hope to be doing in November. And I thought perhaps, I know that you're going to be running again. You could use some time to talk about the importance of small businesses and what kinds of decisions are being discussed or what topics are being discussed in Boston that may or may not have an impact on our business community and what we should be doing to help advocate for and support our small businesses.
Well, first of all, I think it's great that you put such spotlight and focus on the small business person, the entrepreneur who decided to, reach out, take a chance, spend probably all of his or her life savings and start a business at a time when our economy here in Massachusetts has been very shaky. So I think it's great that you're focusing on those people. My view as a legislator has always been sort of the Hippocratic oath that doctors use. First, do no harm. There's very little that we can really do to help businesses as legislators and as government, but there's a lot we can do to get in their way, to make it harder for them to operate, to make it harder for them to turn a profit, and obviously to make it more expensive so that they can't make profit and hire new people. So I really use that as a guiding principle as a legislator. First, do no harm.
I like that, Don. Senator, I would be respectful. I like that. And
Don is good.
I like that a lot, and you're right. Although there are programs that we can offer businesses. A lot of them are talking about, needing help and needing support. I'll use a couple of examples, and it has to do with regulation that are regulations that are imposed onto businesses. Let's say I'm an excellent baker, and I bake the best peanut butter cookies you've ever had in your life, and I've decided to take my life savings and make and create a company, Debbie's Peanut Butter Cookies, and boy, people love them and they're buying them. But I have to have specific insurance policies, and I have to have certain regulations that I have to follow, and I have to file certain papers, and there's all of these rules and regulations that come up to me as this small business person who only knows how to make peanut butter cookies. And it ends up that the business person, rather than spending 100% of their time selling and making those cookies, they're spending 20% of their time trying to decipher the paperwork and the policy and the regulations that are placed upon them for just trying to create a business and hire people.
Right. All of a sudden, they have to satisfy the bureaucrats who need them to fill out paperwork at every level, the local level, the state level, and even the federal level. For a small business, sometimes the business people are amazed at just how much time they need to spend filling out paperwork requirements and filing documents. And of course, with each of those documents, there's a filing fee that the government's place on those documents, so that it is so expensive just out of the gate for someone to start a small business, just because of filing fees and incorporation fees and all the permits and applications that they have to go through. And I hear time and again, as I know you do, as you're out and about on your campaign trail, but also as you've been serving in the Chamber of Commerce, they're frustrated because they've been told from day one that jobs are the most important things, and the Commonwealth wants to have new jobs and new businesses, and yet it's been their experience that when they try, they get suppressed, they get put down because it's just so expensive.
Right. It's almost as if we say, we want to be pro jobs, but we're not pro business.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's the frustration that we sometimes face as Republicans in a minority party here in Massachusetts, where we really just want to help the little guy get ahead, or at least get a good start, and we're faced going up against Governor Patrick and his administration and the overwhelmingly Democratic legislature and the structure that's put in place that over the years has grown so vast and so oppressive that it's just very difficult for the smaller businesses to get going. But large corporations, they can kind of take care of themselves. Not that it doesn't cost them a lot of money too. And of course, let's for a moment just recognize that those costs aren't paid for by the businesses; they're paid for by the customers. Everything gets put back on the person who buys those peanut butter cookies or buys those new automobiles or the refrigerators or whatever it is that you're buying. There's a cost associated with it. So, for example, every time the legislature looks at raising the gasoline tax, for the purported purpose, and a good purpose, of course, of fixing our road and bridges here in the Commonwealth, well, that gasoline tax cost
John, I'm losing you. Are you on a cell phone? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like I'm going to take a quick break here and see if I can't reconnect with my friend, Senator Don Humason. We'll be right back with you.
times do you see a politician and realize they just don't get it? That's why Deborah Boronsky is running for state senate. Deb's not a politician. She's a successful businesswoman who founded local and regional chambers of commerce to fight for businesses and families in Western Mass. Deb truly understands that high taxes, government waste, and ineffective spending are the things that are preventing our economy from growing. So let's send Deborah Boronsky to Beacon Hill. Deborah will listen to us because she's one of us, and we deserve to be heard. Paid for by the committee to elect Deborah Boronsky.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And Senator Husband, does your wife call you that?
That's what my wife calls me.
Oh, I think that's a great little faux pas. I'm going to use that, or you can feel free to use it. Senator Humason, thank you so much for being back. And for those of you...
I apologize. I must have gotten disconnected. I'm very sorry about that.
That's no problem. I'm supposed to learn how to fly by my seat right here, and this is great training. So for folks who...
Great job, don't worry.
For folks who are just joining us, I am Deborah Boronsky, and I am the president of the Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce and candidate for state senate in the 1st Hampden, Hampshire district. That is East Longmeadow, Hampden, Wilbraham, Belchertown, Granby, Ludlow, and parts of Chicopee and Springfield. I am speaking with the wonderful Senator Donald Humason from Westfield, a good friend of mine. I've known him for years and years.
Long time. It's been great.
A long time. Did I work with you when I was with the Chicopee Chamber of Commerce, Don?
Yeah, I think that might be when we first met, Deb. I think I was an aide to Senator Mike Knappich at the time, who represented more of Chicopee than I do now. I have, if all goes well in November, you and I will be in the legislature together. You were representing the 1st Hampden, Hampshire district, and I'm representing the 2nd Hampden, Hampshire district. And between the two of us, we'll have over 2/3 of the city of Chicopee represented in the state senate.
That's fabulous, and fabulous for Chicopee too. There's a whole
city. It really is, and I know you know it well from your time on the chamber. And I came to love it as an aide to Senator Knappich, working for him to represent the people of the city of Chicopee in the Massachusetts Senate at the time.
Yeah, Chicopee's a great city. I actually lived there for 16 years. My son went to school there. We moved when he was a sophomore in high school, so he started at Litwin School, which was off of Burnett Road. So he went to Chicopee schools. I ran the chamber for 10 years in Chicopee, as you know, and I actually still continue to serve as a member of the Municipal Retirement Board. Mayor Joseph Chessie, you remember Joe Chessie?
I do remember Joe very well.
Yeah, before he left, he appointed me to the Retirement Board, and I have been very happily serving on that board for almost 18 years. So I'm still quite involved with the city of Chicopee, and
well, that experience will actually stand you in good stead as a senator, too, because you've got real-world experience. You're actually still serving on the retirement board, and that's an issue that we face almost daily at the State House with issues about retirement, pensions, and public benefits, and OPEB, and all those things that make the average listener fall asleep, but you have to be involved with.
It's it's a complicated topic, actually, but the city of Chicopee actually ranks in the top 5. It has for the last 3 years as far as return on investments.
That's awesome.
And when the state was looking to take over, we decided that we were going to continue to work hard and make some really good investments, which we have. I think that in order to be out of the state-run retirement board, you have to be 65% funded, and we are.
Which, come to think of it, really isn't that good.
No.
But it's good to hear that Chicopee is so much higher than that.
Yeah. Chicopee is in the top 5 communities as far as returns on investment. So that means they're doing a good job in taking the money that they're holding for our retirees and putting it to work, so that people will get the money that they've put in and deserve to collect at the right time.
That's very, very important. And of course, the economy from about 2008 on was really, really bad, and the return on the investment was really low. So we saw a lot of problems with some of our municipal retirement boards. They just weren't making the returns they had hoped for.
Yep.
Luckily, things seem to be improving, albeit a little slower than you and I would prefer, but they are getting better.
Yes, I think we're back to where we were before the big
right.
crash.
They just announced recently we're back as far as levels of of income in return that equal the days before the crash, so to speak.
Yeah, it's been a long road. That's when I started the Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce. I decided to leave a really good paying job, and I founded, I left the affiliated chambers of Greater Springfield, and I founded the Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce because I believed that, I love chambers of commerce. I've worked, locally and regionally for most of my career, but I felt strongly that I wanted to do more than, organize breakfasts and trade shows and luncheons, which are very important for local networking. I am certainly
very important for networking. That's right.
Absolutely.
Well.
And I'm making sure that, I greatly respect and understand the need for that. But I felt after so many years that I wanted to do a little more. And starting the Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce was a way for me to put my energy and enthusiasm to work. But I started it right when the crash happened, and boy, was it difficult knocking on doors and trying to convince businesses to support yet another, chamber of commerce, nonprofit business organization. That first year, I struggled, but we have prevailed. So,
and Deborah, this to me is just another classic example of why you were such a good candidate and why you would make such a great state senator, because you have real world, practical experience where you started at the bottom and pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You know what it's like to serve in the trenches and work hard every day, and you know how to translate that experience into real action. And I've watched you over the years in your Chamber of Commerce dealings and your business dealings where you network with people, where you bring small businesses and big businesses together and help them, obviously. And if they do well, I think I like to use what President Kennedy used to always say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And if the small businesses and the big businesses do well, they can hire more people. And if they hire more people, those people pay more taxes. And if the taxes go up because there are more people working, well, that's good for the government. It allows us to be able to spend that money on good programs for our citizens and our cities and towns. And so it's a nice cycle, nice healthy cycle, the way it should be. Where businesses are doing well, people are being employed, products are being made and sold, and that's a good thing for us here in Western Massachusetts.
Yep.
And you understand that, so I'm really excited about working with you.
I'm excited too. Plus, you have some great people in your group. I mean, Senator Tarr, who, by the way, was supposed to be with us today, but he is in a meeting. He's on the special gun.
He's on the conference committee for the gun bill that the legislature just passed recently. The House passed it 2 weeks ago. The Senate passed it last week. And when there's two different versions of a bill, they have to be conferenced, which basically means they need to be negotiated between the House version and the Senate version. It's fairly a complicated bill, and it's pretty controversial because of some provisions that are in one version. I was very happy to support the Senate version that we passed because I think it's respectful of licensed, law-abiding gun owners, the good guys, and also sensitive enough to the needs of the mental health community, and also puts people concerned about great bill in the Senate. The House bill, good, go quite as far. So I'm happy that Senator Bruce Tarr is actually our conferee that committee, and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate a nice compromise with the 5 other members of the committee so that next week we'll be able to vote on that final bill. Massachusetts got a lot of we have some of the toughest rules in the state, some of the most burdensome rules for law-abiding gun owners. I know you just had a chance to go out and become a licensed gun owner yourself, and I think you took a class, right?
Yeah, that was great fun.
Was that awesome?
It was fabulous. A friend of mine, of course, I support our Second Amendment rights. That's something I believe in. And I went to speak at the Holyoke Revolvers Club. And a friend of mine said, Deb, you should come out and speak to them and introduce yourself. It's a good opportunity. So I did, and they were a great group. And from the back of the room after speaking, someone said, so, do you have your license to carry? And I said, well, actually, sir, no, I don't. He said, well, if we sign you up for the class, are you going to take it? I said, absolutely.
Wasn't it a great experience?
It was, and I guess they were shocked. They really didn't expect me to show up. And so I showed up with my,
you kept your word? That is so novel for a politician. Congratulations.
Yeah, actually, those are a few of the comments that I heard. Really? But I was
in Holyoke a couple of weeks ago speaking at the the Holyoke Revolver Club, and they told me how happy they were that you actually came out, took the class, and passed flying colors, which is great.
Yeah, well,
And,
Dan's not so happy because I was good, and I brought home my my target, when and it had all the bullets. All the bullets were in the middle. All the black spots were filled. So I guess I was a pretty good student.
I've been a shooter for a long time, and invariably over the years I've taken interns and staff and family members and even friends to the range to help them become more comfortable and confident with firearms, more safe with them especially. But I always find that women tend to be better shooters than men.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you can say that. That's what they said. I think it maybe has to do with us being a little more patient. I don't know. I don't know if that's a true statement or not, but that's what they were telling me at the class as well, that women tend to be better shooters than men going through the same process. So, you know what we're going to do? Don, we're just about ready to go on to a break. Okay. And then we will come right back and talk more about, I think I'd like to talk more about Chicopee and what's going on there, if you don't mind.
To help Deborah Boronsky get elected. She's always looking for good people to make calls, knock on doors, help with sign standouts, and yes, make donations. If you want to help Deborah with her campaign, you can sign up on her website at boronskyforsenate.com or give her a call today at 413-231-2225. That's 413-231-2225. Help Deborah win this election by donating your time and talent today.
Hey folks, Deborah Boronsky here. Thanks for sticking with us. We're back from a short break, and again, this is Deborah Boronsky. I am the president of the Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce, and I am a candidate for state senate in the 1st Hampden, Hampshire district. I'm here this afternoon with Senator Don Humason. Senator Humason was sworn into office in November. He is the Senate Majority Whip, serving his first term, and he serves on many legislative committees, including the Veterans and Federal Affairs, Public Health, Revenue, Children, Family and Persons with Disabilities, and the Budget Writing, Senate Ways and Means, among a lot of other things. Don, they've really got you busy over there, don't they?
Well, one of the benefits of being in the minority party, where there are fewer of us, is that we get to spread ourselves out a little bit and serve on more committees. So, yeah, I'm on 9 different committees, including Ways and Means, which, of course, is probably the most important committee I could be on. My predecessor, Mike Knappich, was on Ways and Means as well, so it was very kind of Senator Bruce Tarr to appoint me to that position after I got elected. And, of course, my focus is Western Mass communities. In my case, the 2nd Hampden, Hampshire district, and in your case, the 1st.
So why don't you tell folks what towns are in your district?
I have 11 cities and towns in my community, or in my district, and they include the communities of Agawam, Southwick, Granville, and Tolland, East Hampton and Southampton, Russell, Montgomery, Westfield, Holyoke, and 4 precincts in the city of Chicopee, 7, 8A, and 9A.
8A and 9A.
Yeah, so I'm actually down. My part of Chicopee is sort of west of Memorial Drive. I go down and sort of border the Connecticut River, the
Aldenville.
Bridge. Yep, I've got, for example, the Lucky Strike is in my district.
Oh, nice!
Phenomenal place. But I also go down to Al's Diner near the Willimantic Bridge, which is under construction right now, and we're hoping to have that open between Chicopee and Holyoke by next July, a year from now. But that's the part of Chicopee that I represent. It's only a small part. Over the years, the redistricting has taken more from Chicopee out of my district and put it into, I think, the district that's currently held by Senator Kandaris, the seat that you're going to take in November, and Senator Welch, who has the downtown part of Chicopee that borders Springfield. So I don't have a lot of the city, but because I love Chicopee so much and feel so strongly about the place, I really try to make sure I'm involved in what goes on, including some of the things that I think we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So
in the news recently.
So right before we were leaving, we were talking about Senator Tarr, who wanted to call in and be part of this, but he respectfully asked if he could be, his folks asked if he could be rescheduled. And certainly I thought it would be great to have him come back on after the primary.
Oh, you should do that. He's a wonderful candidate, a wonderful speaker himself, and a great leader. And I think he'd be very entertaining for your listeners.
Very good. So, Don, let's talk about Chicopee and the immigration situation. I'm just going to put it right out there. Having lived in Chicopee for 16 years, I served as the president of the Galaxy Community Council, which is the liaison group who works, with Westover and the public, to put on the air show. I did trade shows out there when I ran the chamber with Doris Ransford from Holyoke. I said I lived there for 16 years. And, as I'm running for senator, I am out knocking on doors in Chicopee. I am opposed to, the proposal that the governor had to bring those folks to Westover. I'm opposed to it because as I go through my process of talking with citizens in my run, so many people here in Chicopee, in Springfield, and East Longmeadow are in trouble and need help and aren't getting it. And there are 20,000 families in Massachusetts right now who are homeless or receiving aid and not getting the right aid, homeless and hungry and not getting help. We have people living in hotels. We're cutting services out of the budget because we're trying to balance the budget, and we're looking at bringing more people in. And I like it I say that it's like being on the Titanic, Don. We're on the Titanic and we are heading for an iceberg. How can we take on more passengers? We need to right our ship. And that's how I feel. And I have to say that so many people agree. I
concur. I feel like we're already in the lifeboat, Deb. That's the problem. We're in the lifeboat with a lot of people in the lifeboat already. And if you try to take on too many more, that lifeboat is going to sink and won't be good to rescue anybody.
There you go. The lifeboat.
So I was in the Senate chamber a couple of weeks ago, 2 Thursdays ago, actually, and my phone rang. We're not allowed to accept phone calls on the Senate floor, so I didn't answer the phone. After the session was over, I went to retrieve the message, and it was the governor's office. So I called them back right away, and they were calling to notify me that the governor had made up his mind to offer up 2 locations here in the Commonwealth to his friend, the President of the United States. And he said, one of those locations is going to be Camp Edwards down at the Otis Air Force Base in Cape Cod, and the other location is going to be Westover Air Reserve Base in Chicopee. My immediate response to the governor's staff person was to say, I thought that was a bad idea. I said, not because we're not very sympathetic to the needs of these children, but the bigger issue is that Westover just isn't set up to handle that kind of influx of people. And I didn't think the folks in the city of Chicopee would be all that enthusiastic about having these illegal immigrants in their city. And furthermore, and it's been borne out by both Representative Joe Wagner and Mayor of the city of Chicopee, Richard Koss, who said they were skeptical of the federal government's promises, skeptical of the information that had been given to Governor Patrick's office, skeptical indeed about how long, how many, and how much, I guess, are the big questions that we have to ask.
One of the things that I struggle with is the lack of information. It's so hard to make a decision when you just don't know, and there's so much out there. There are so many things being said, and if we could just honestly be told this is the situation, as opposed to letting all of the hearsay take place. For example, they're not children, they're ordering extra large clothes, they're teenagers, they're from gangs, they have tattoos. That's one side. The other side is, they've been coming in all along, and, right there at the Cape, more than 800 of the children have already been released. Never mind, let's think about where to put them. I think it was a selectmen's meeting in Bourne. It was discussed. A couple nights ago, yeah. Yes, that there are already 800 children have already been released to family and or friends. They're already released, Dawn. So they haven't even gone through the process. And who were they released to? Right. And who's going to tell us?
This speculation. Oh, they're only going to be here for a couple of months. Well, we don't know that for sure, do we? And we also know that the immigration courts are backlogged to 2017 or 2018. So if you're looking to get a case, you're going to have to wait a couple of years.
They're
If you're waiting
backlogged?
a couple of years. They're backlogged that far. So these cases that are coming into the country right now are going to have to wait several years to be handled. Does that mean that those children, those people will be stationed at Westover for the next couple of years? Will they be moved around the country? Nobody can say for sure.
Right. Okay. And so we're gonna wait until 2018 until they can go to the immigration court system to determine whether they should be here. In the meantime, and if the federal government is indeed footing the bill.
Well, let's be clear. The federal government doesn't pay for anything. The taxpayers of the United States of America
Right.
pay for everything.
Because we are the federal government, right? I mean, I know that when I look at my paycheck every week, there are state taxes taken out of it, and there are federal taxes taken out of it, right?
That's correct.
Right. So I'm the federal government, and you're the federal government, so we're paying.
And the tune of about, I think, $3.5 million, not billion, million, which is still a lot of money. But the president is waiting for Congress to allocate that money for him to be able to do this program at Westover or Cape Cod or wherever they're going to go. But that money hasn't been allocated yet. Deb, our economy nationally is fragile. The government is over 17 trillion with a T, $trillion in debt. This year, the federal government actually is doing pretty well with its deficit. It's only running an $800 billion deficit in this year. So they're doing pretty well, right?
That's great.
But the point is, we don't have the money to run things as we're trying to already. And then to take on the people from other countries is, to me, unsustainable and unaffordable. Not that we don't want to do it, not that we don't want to offer everybody the same advantages we have here in the United States, but there are laws, and there have been laws since the founding of our country, that need to be followed. And these folks aren't following them. They're coming across our borders illegally. Meanwhile, at embassies around the world, there are people who are waiting in line who have filed the paperwork and gone through the process legally to try to come into the United States, and they're not being allowed in.
Yeah.
And that concerns me.
Right. And, we think about immigration, Dan's father, came over. I was talking, my good friend, Mr. Santinello.
Sure.
Paul, he told me a story.
He's a good Irishman.
He's a good Irishman. His mom and her brother and sister were sent here on a boat, but they were escorted, and there was someone waiting here, and they built a business. People, when they immigrated early on, came here with a dream and a hope and a promise that they could work hard and own property and prosper.
Well, they want
and the people
become Americans, part of that melting pot.
Right. But people who are coming here now, some are coming here with a promise of telephone, housing, an EBT card, and that's really tiresome. It really, really is tiresome. So immigrants back in the day were the right thing. That's what we're made of, and I recognize it, and I think that people do. But it's just really become a horrific situation that we're dealing with, and people are just so tired of paying and paying and paying and not getting the support that they themselves need. I'll tell you, I posted on Facebook. I wrote an article, and I wanted to make sure that people saw it in case it didn't get printed.
Sure.
And the reaction to my statements about not saying no to the governor and why. And just quoting statistics about the 20,000 homeless families that we have and so on. That post was forwarded, shared more than 80 times. That's, for our little world, right?
That's a big deal.
That's huge. And there were over...
And that story is a week old. It was last Friday that broke.
Yes.
It was last Thursday night that I heard from the governor's office. Friday I was doing all the news shows and talking to the newspapers. And it's an opinion that a lot of us share. It doesn't mean that we're cold-hearted or heartless or don't love children. I have a little boy who's 3 years old. I love being a father, and I can't imagine the trauma trauma that these children have left in their own native countries. But it's time for the people of those countries to do what we did here in America, overthrow the ruling class at the time, and have a revolution.
Yep.
And get their own houses in order before expecting our lifeboat to overfill.
Yeah.
And that's the problem too, Dad. There's no solution on the horizon. It's not like the borders will be hardened and the fences will be built and folks will be stopped from coming into the country illegally in the future. This will continue. And how much longer will we be able to handle the influx of people, again, who are getting into this country illegally and, in the process, bringing in all sorts of problems? There might be criminal elements involved. There might be a terrorist element involved. There might be a drug-related element involved. There's certainly issues that affect our healthcare system, and we haven't talked about some of those, but on the border they're facing some pretty serious health risks because a lot of these folks coming in from the Central America are carrying diseases that we here in the United States haven't had to face for years and years and years, and are not really in a position where we can resist those diseases. So there's likely to be an impact in our local hospitals. There's likely to be an impact with our schools. I've already talked about how the immigration courts are full. It's a real problem. It's an expensive problem, and it's one that we, as much as we'd like to try to handle, I don't think we're capable of doing.
No. I'll tell you what, Don, this is a perfect time for us to take a break. And when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about you and what your hopes are going forward and your, the process coming up with our elections. So I can brag a little on you when we get back.
Happy to do it. Thanks, Deb.
This is John Mayberry, president of Mayberry Material Handling. Established in 1976, we are Southern New England's largest one-source supplier of Crown forklifts, racking, shelving, dock and door equipment, and much, much more. We offer new products, rental, service, parts, installation, and custom welded solutions. 2014 is bringing growth for us, so we are interviewing now for road, forklift mechanics, and sales professionals in the Springfield, Hartford, New Haven areas. You can contact us at mayberry.com. That's MAYBURY.com, or email jobs@mayberry.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Taking Care of Business. This is Deborah Boronsky. I am the president of the Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce, and I am a candidate for state senate in the 1st Camden, Hampshire district. That is East Longmeadow, Hamden, Wilbraham, Belchertown, Granby, Ludlow, and parts of Chicopee and Springfield. This show is generally used to talk to small business owners because I feel so strongly that we are blessed in the 1st Hamden, Hampshire district out here in Western Mass with so many wonderful small businesses, people who have started companies in their garage, in their cellar with their own money, and grown companies to help our communities be beautiful and successful and prosper. They employ our children, our grandchildren, our friends and neighbors. And I feel so strongly that as a future senator, I want to go to Boston and make sure that we're taking care. As my friend Don Humason will tell you, do no harm to those folks who are trying to run a company and make our communities better. So I am here with Don Humason, Senator Donald Humason, who was sworn into office in November, and we've been chatting about, making sure that we work hard to support our local communities. Because quite honestly, Don, right, the people who are running these small businesses, they're our neighbors. So when I talk about the small business person, I'm talking about the person that lives next door to you as well.
One of the best things we can do when I sit down and talk to somebody, I say, "What do you do?" And I'm intrigued when they tell me, because they tell me about the struggles they face to start their businesses, to employ people, to get things going, and how hard it's been, and how all they're looking to do is just to make their widgets,
yes,
and, sell their widgets out there, and yet often it's frustrating for them because they want to do a good thing. They want to do something that we all agree is important, which is to create jobs in our state. But they seem to be in that time and again with bureaucratic roadblocks.
Yep. Talk to me about you, sir. You're going. You are looking to be reelected.
Well, I just had probably the best 8 months of my life. I was elected last November in a special election to replace Senator Mike Knappich and to serve in the second New Hampshire district. And really, we started, as I promised during the campaign, we just hit the ground running. The minute I was elected, I came from being a member of the House of Representatives, so I already had a really good handle on the legislative process and on the State House and on the people and personalities involved. But the best part of the job has been getting to know the other towns besides Westfield, which I represented before, and the towns that bordered Westfield. I now have an opportunity to reach out and meet the people from Agawam or Southampton or East Hampton, Chicopee and Holyoke, and work with them and kind of prove to them that I'm not just going to be focused on the city of Westfield. As important as that city is to me as my home, I feel like almost like a father who has 11 kids. You love each and every one of them, and you want to make sure that you do everything you can to make sure that they succeed in whatever it is they're doing. So I've had a chance to sit down with all the mayors and the select boards and the chambers of commerce, very important groups, but also the senior centers and the organizations that make the communities of my district work as well as they do. It's been exciting, it's been fun, and I really enjoy doing it.
Yes, and we hope that you'll be able to continue to enjoy doing that. I'll tell you, you've been through this before, but I'm a hard worker. I've started companies. I see companies and see how hard they work. I had no idea what was involved in running a race.
It's pretty much constant, isn't it? You're doing it all the time.
And then there's so much involved.
I found that when I get home from Boston at night, I then turn around and go right back out to either a meeting or to some gathering in my community or some function that I should attend. Even if I'm not on the schedule or on the agenda, I still like to go. And I feel lately, because it's been so busy at the State House as the end of session is approaching, I feel like I'm missing out on things happening back here at home. But of course, I know I'm doing my job.
Right.
When the session's done and I've finished voting on the bills, and of course, one of the things I'm very proud of is that I have a 100% voting record. I haven't missed a single vote on the Senate floor since I've been elected, on top of not having missed a vote in the House last year, when I was still a House member. So I try to make sure that I'm very present to do my job, and I don't miss votes. And then when I'm done with Boston, I look forward to diving right back into my communities here and making myself as accessible and available to people who need help with constituent issues or just want questions answered, or they want to know more about what their government's doing or not doing, or why they're doing the things that we're doing the way we're doing them. So, you know it from having run your campaign and from being involved in it right now. It's a real full-time job to campaign, and your goal is actually to market yourself to all of the prospective consumers, quote-unquote, the voters who are out there who need to know that you're going to be up for the task of doing the job in November when you're elected.
Yep.
And Deborah, you are definitely up to the task. I think you would make a tremendous senator. And knowing what I know now about the body, having been a member of it now since last November, you would fit in very, very well, and you would bring a lot to the table, experience that we, as 40 state senators, could really use.
That's nice to hear, Don, and that's...
Oh, yeah, you'll be fine. Don't worry. I think you're going to do a great job.
Yeah, and there are there are 4 Republican senators now, correct?
At this point, there's only 4, so we represent about 10% of the current state Senate makeup, which is 40 members from across the Commonwealth. Each of us represent about 165,000 people. So we have quite a few folks in our districts. Many of us represent, like you and I, both have, I have 11 communities. How many in the first 10 in the New Hampshire district?
9.
Yeah, so we have a good handful of communities that we have to focus on. And then if you get out west in the Berkshires, I have one of my colleagues who represents communities in 4 different counties.
That's
here
crazy.
in Massachusetts. So it's a lot of territory to cover, but it's definitely a job that you can do and do well. Oh, and also, we know that we're going to be taking up seats as Republicans this November. We expect to pick up a number of seats across the state, which just helps to kind of bring the legislature back into some sort of a semblance of balance. It's never a good idea, and I always point to Washington, D.C., when I say it's never a good idea when one party rules the whole show. Even if they have the best of intentions, it turns out that absolute power sometimes corrupts. And as I say, it corrupts absolutely. So it's better not to have one party of either political affiliation rule the entire process, and it'd be really helpful for the Commonwealth and for our citizens and the taxpayers especially if there were more Republicans in the Senate. And I think we'll have a few more added next November.
Very good.
One of them.
I agree with the semblance of balance, Don. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, this conversation, it applies to you in that it's like being raised with just a mother or just a father. You know, you can't have a one-sided conversation. Having both the mom and the dad at the table talking about the situation brings two sides of logic together so the best decision can be made. And having just a Democratic table or just a Republican table, for that matter,
right,
would not be conducive to the best possible decision. And having
it's like
that,
only hearing one side of the story all the time.
correct.
That side of the story may be valid, may be important, but you're missing out on hearing the other side of the story.
Yep.
And as we know, there's two sides to everything, and some issues, many more sides. But we as Republican members in the Senate and in the legislature in general offer a different perspective. Some would say better, some would say worse. I would say no better or worse, just different. And it's important, nonetheless, to have that alternative view to be able to represent sort of the minority view in the state. And we are, by population, a minority party. But lately, the number of Democrats in the legislature, a number of Democrats in the Commonwealth have fallen, and the number of unenrolled have increased. So
yes.
There's a lot more unenrolled voters out there, those people who are technically independent and can go any way they want when they vote. So it's not like the Democrats have that monolithic grip on the state anymore. It's really up to the voters, and most of those voters tend to be independently minded.
Right, and many of them that I'm talking to, many of the independent voters are saying that, well, I used to be a Democrat, but now I'm an independent because I want to be able to choose.
And I've talked to Republicans who say, I used to be a Republican, but now I want to be able to choose the person,
Yep.
not the party. I want to choose the person who I think will work hardest, who will bring the most common sense to the legislature,
Yes.
and the person that I can identify with and trust. And I think that's why I respect people who are registering and who are voting as independents, because they have the ability to be able to choose who the best person is and to vote that way in the state and federal election.
Right. So I'll use. We probably have about 4 minutes left, Don. I'm going to use. I told you it would. I'm going to use one example of why having diversity at the table is important. I sat through the Senate debate. You weren't there yet. I sat through the Senate debate on the increase in a minimum wage.
Sure.
And one of the senators, his logic for increasing the minimum wage, his words were, well, businesses are resilient. They can handle it. They can take care of anything we give them. This is the right thing to do. So basically, let's put this burden on business. Businesses are resilient. They always make it work out. Now, this particular senator, I'm sure, has never met a payroll, has never had to do anything close to running a company and making decisions day to day on how you're going to pay your employees. So that's one perspective, and so there it is. That's one senator sitting, and that's his perspective. The only senator who stood up and actually referenced a survey that the Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce provided was Senator Tarr. And, so if there are more voices of reason at that Senate debate, we have a better chance of making sure that all sides are heard and understood. And I think that's part of the problem. We elect people who don't have the type of experience that's needed at the table.
That worldview, that common sense, practical experience they need. It's nice to be academic and theoretical, but sometimes it's also nice to have real world experience where you can say, hey, guess what? If you do this, government, this is what the business community will do. And if you increase the minimum wage, the business community has already said they will cease hiring new people because they've only got so much money to pay. They will either lay folks off, or they won't employ new people.
Or they'll pass it on.
And they will pass the prices on.
Right.
Absolutely. Right now, the folks who come in and ask for a minimum wage increase say, I can't afford the dollar menu at McDonald's. And I say, well, what do you think the dollar menu is going to cost after we mandate an increase in minimum wage?
It's going to be the $1.50 menu.
It's a $1.50 menu. That's exactly right. So you're always behind the eight ball. The goal should be that nobody wants a minimum wage job, that they work hard, get their experience, and move up and get away from a minimum wage job.
That's right.
It's meant to be a training job, not a life job.
That's right. Don, my first job was at a silk screening factory. I made baby bibs for piece rate wages. I'll tell you what, you learn how to work really, really, really quickly when that's your first job. I did it when I was a sophomore in high school out in Ware.
Out here in Westfield, my first job was picking tobacco at Clark Brothers Tobacco Farms. I worked from 6 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, outdoors all day under the nets, hot, sweaty, dirty, and we made about $2.33 an hour.
Yeah.
It taught me real quick that I wanted to go to school, get experience, get a job that I didn't have to pick tobacco in, and move up the ranks. And that's exactly what I've done. I've served time in the trenches, learned how to do jobs, and moved up to a point where I'm making a comfortable living, and I'm doing a good thing, and I'm not making minimum wage.
No. And I'll tell you what, Don, as we're getting ready to close the show, I want to just say that, I've worked with you as a Chamber of Commerce executive, and I want to applaud how you speak and how you handle crowds. So I run. People might not know, I also run the West Springfield and Agawam Chamber of Commerce. And so you attend breakfast and events that we put on for that organization. And when you stand up and address the business community, you present yourself so eloquently and so calmly and so logically that they really do appreciate it. And I am saying that I am so much looking forward to working with you in November. I think we'll do a good job for Western Mass. We're just about done here. I want to let listeners know that I have an event at Bentley's Bistro on Wednesday of next week from 5 to 7. If you'd like to meet me or join me, you can go to my website, which is boronskiforsenate.com. Don, I want to thank you so very much for being with me.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you all the listeners for tuning in.
Very good. You have yourself a great day and a great weekend, sir.
Take good care, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Don. Bye-bye. And bye-bye to everyone listening. We'll talk to you next week.
You're listening to the Real Oldies Station. Real Oldies 1250 WARE. Where? Sturbridge, Springfield. Online at realoldies1250.net.